Allah, 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 Allah.
Alright, so let me ask you a question. And this is open for the sisters, open for brothers. Matter of fact, due to the arrangement of the room, I guess we're going to have a competition in terms of participation. So the title of this lecture, discussion, class, is what does fasting have to do with Tawhid? Or what does Sawm have to do with Tawhid? So I want you to answer that question first. I know this is British. I know those British people really don't like to talk. I understand that, but just pretend that we're like in America right now, and you can come out of your shell. And what does it mean? What does fasting have to do with Tawheed? First of all, let's break the question down. What is fasting? What is Sawm? First of all,
going without.
So Sawm is going without, or abstention.
Abstention.
Right. All right. Sawm is going without or abstention. Abstention from what? Everyone understand the term abstention, meaning like you're not gonna. It's imsak. You're not gonna eat this, or you're not gonna drink that. But what else does it? It also includes. There's an ayah in Quran where there's this idea of Sawm is mentioned, wherein there's no speech. So it doesn't just mean refraining. Siyam doesn't mean like just refraining from eating. It doesn't mean just refraining from drinking and the pleasures of life while the daylight hours or while we're in the daylight hours. But it means generally to abstain and to do without. It could also be speech, like you're not going to say anything. You don't say anything. You choose not to speak for a few hours. This refrain is this imsak. It's called Sawm. That's kind of straightforward, but what about this word Tawheed? What does Tawheed mean? What is Tawheed? What does it mean? We hear it all the time. Alright, so she said the oneness of Allah. Anyone else?
God consciousness.
God consciousness? Okay. Tawheed is a word that we throw around, we use all the time. I'm asking you though, from a linguistic point of view, do you know, does anyone here speak Arabic? MashaAllah. So, Tawheed is a word that actually comes from wahada. Wahada means to actually make something one, to unify it. Wahadtu shay'a. I unified something. I made, maybe there was two parts and I put it, so I welded them together, so now there's only one. Tawheed is the process of making something one. Now, what I want to ask you, though, is that when it comes to this word Tawheed, if Tawheed means to make something one, how do you and I make God one?
Or to make a sharik of him, anybody else.
Alright, so not to make a partner with him.
Yeah.
But
Contribute his characteristics to somebody else.
right. But what I'm saying is, listen to the question carefully. How do we make God one?
You can't make him easy.
You
He's
can't
already
make God one. You can't make God two either. You can't make God anything. God is God, and He is, and He was, and He always will be, exactly as He is, perfect and infallible, and all those nice words that try to explain something that's beyond comprehension. Now, Tawheed means to make something one. But my question is, how do you make God one when God is clearly one? God was one before human beings, and be one after we're all destroyed and raised up again. So how do you make God one? Well, Tawheed isn't for God, Tawheed is for me. It's that I take my concepts, how it is that I understand God, and as you mentioned, I make sure that I don't describe God or understand Him in such a way that would cause Him to not be one in my own perspective, in my own mindset. Tawheed, in that regard, has absolutely nothing to do with God at all. You can't make God anything. So Tawheed is for us. Now, what does fasting have to do with Tawhid? What does this process that we're doing now, this fasting that we're doing right now, this refrain that we're doing right now, this abstention that we're doing right now, what does it have to do with Tawhid? Well, to understand some of those things, I wanted to back it up a little bit. And I intended to do this discussion in two different ways. One is just us talking and kind of going back and forth, and the other one is the second half is to read from Imam Ghazali, from the Inner Dimensions of Islamic Worship. It's a beautiful book. So, what is a good life? Because in order to fast, you have to be alive, as far as I understand. So what is a good life? Contentment. Okay, she says contentment. What if your contentment is in hurting other people? So what is a good life? To live life according to the rules that Allah gave us. What if you don't believe in God?
Having food, having water, having the things that we take for granted that other people don't have. That's life, and that's what we would learn from when you're fasting.
So what you said is, what you said was that having a good life is really basically having food and water and the things that we need. But the thing though about that would be, we could say that kind of means that we're like animals. That an animal, if it has good food, it has a good life. If it has water, I have cats, for example. My cats, they like water and food, and if they have it, they're happy. And if they don't, they scratch my legs up, right? I mean, there has to be something more to life, a virtuous life, a good life, than just having your bare necessities.
A life with a purpose, a life with a goal.
Yes. She said a life with a goal, a life with a purpose. Now that is going in the direction where we want to go. If you can, as much as possible, try to think of yourself first, while we're having this discussion, try to think of yourself first as a human being. Then think of yourself with all the other attributes that you have. Think of yourself as a person first. This is not like an Islamic conversation where you have to make sure you answer the right questions, and you have to answer the questions in the right way, or someone's going to come and hit you with a ruler, or something like that. We're just having, as human beings, we're having a conversation. It happens to be that we all basically agree on some pretty important points in our life, but we're humans first. So having a virtuous life is not necessarily, we can't say, I would agree with you, but we can't say for everybody that they would understand or see it, that it be that you obey Allah's rules, because they don't even know who Allah is. So that we have to start from a very basic place first. And what she said, I would go with that having a life with purpose. Now what do you mean? Now what is a purpose?
It really depends how you, if you are a believer, then the purpose reveals to you. You choose a purpose, then you look around in the universe, you find science, you follow the science, you find the creation, and then you find the answer when that creation is created. You create it with a purpose.
So she said that that you look around and you realize that you're created and you go towards it. But you give me an example of purpose. So I'm saying, what is purpose itself? What is having a purpose? What is an objective?
An action with intended outcome. Action with intended outcome.
An action with an intended outcome. So that means that you do something, and in your mind you aim at a specific outcome, a specific point, so that you live your life in such a way that you're trying to achieve a very specific goal. Like in football, as far as I can tell, they're not kicking the ball around just because they're having fun. They're trying to get that ball into a net, right? At least that's the short-term goal. The long-term goal is to be the champions of the country or the world, correct? So if you saw a football game or a match and you saw them people and they just start kicking the balls all over the place off the field into the stands, what kind of a football game is that? Well, likewise for a human being has a sense of purpose. If we don't have a sense of purpose, if we have aimlessness, we don't feel happy in our lives. I mean, this is true across the board. Whether you're Muslim, non-Muslim, whatever the case may be, if you don't have an objective, you feel like your life is just going nowhere. Now, the reason why people start to do things in such a way that, we might be judgmental and say, oh, your purpose is not God, look at you, you need to get some dawah. But if you look at people's lives, they all understand that they have to have an objective, and they do work for that. That's something that we have in common. Now, what I'm asking you is, why would you say, as you said, I'm going to ask you because you brought it up, why would you say that God must be the purpose? Why? In other words, you have these people walking around here in Newcastle that are from different backgrounds, and your objective is to help them understand that perhaps they need to change their purpose. I'm asking you why.
Because when we look around and we just want to know why we were created, there must be a reason behind it. And you reflect about it, and you find a creator. When you find the words, when you read the words of your creator, then the person is given them. They've been created to worship something.
Everything in life has a purpose in itself. So this pen has a purpose. Would you agree? What is the purpose of the pen? To write. Is the purpose of the pen to be an ornament? It might look. It doesn't look good now, but it might. Is this? Some people buy pens because they're stylish. Is that fulfilling the purpose of a pen? That's not what it was made for. This microphone is here to project my voice. If I use the microphone as a doorstop to hold the door open, would that be a misuse? The purpose of the computer has many, many purposes, but mostly it's just to have me waste my time and money. The table has a purpose, which is to support the items that are on it. The ground has a purpose, which is to support the people walking on it. The clock has a purpose to tell us the time, to measure the time, really, to measure the movements of action, movements itself. We have closets are there so that we can hide things, basically. The camera is there to record images and sounds, so that other people can benefit or get upset with the content. That everything has a purpose in life. Name me one thing that doesn't have a purpose. Everything has an objective. Everything has something which it is made for. Name me one thing that doesn't have a purpose. You're not going to find it. So the question that must come back to the one who is asking that question is, if everything around here has a purpose, everything has a purpose, then what is my purpose? What am I for? Was I made for the microphone? Was I made for the pen? Was I made for the camera? Was I made for the computer? Was I made for the table? Was I made for the closet? Was I made for the ground? Was I made for the pen? Or were these things made for me? Well, they were made for me. And they must have been made for me because I'm the one using them, and I'm the one who causes them to realize their ultimate purpose. If a buffalo came in here and started stomping around the room, it wouldn't take advantage of half the things that are in it. It's not made for that. So if everything in the universe is made for me, my question has to be, then what am I made for? And how will I be able to realize what I'm made for? Well, this is the secret about religion, in the sense that what religion does, if it's active, is it actually shows you your value, it shows you your worth, it shows you your purpose, by causing you to raise your glance from a lateral position to something more vertical. Because the human being is not a lateral creature. We are not, in other words, we are not just dust walking around. We're not just animals. The Arab scholars of the past, the philosophers and the ulama of the different sciences, they define the human being as hayawan al-natiq, the articulate animal. We have a side to us that is base. We have a side to us that is animalistic. That's why we have laws and rules. But we have a side to us that is not from here. It's from some other place. It's above and beyond. So when the human being is living their life in such a way that it's only there to fulfill the purpose of their animal side, will they be happy? If you're living a life where all you do is eat, all you do is fill your stomach and play and horse around, if you're living a life like that for 90 years, will you be happy? If all you do is, and this is with rare exception, if all you do is sit in a mosque and pray and pray and pray and pray and pray and pray and pray, will you fulfill everything in your life that you're supposed to do? I mean, with rare exception. You're not going to be able to do that because we have two sides to us. Now, living a life of purpose is realizing who it's for. Living a life of purpose is realizing what you're working with. And then finally, and on top of that, realizing what your goal has to be. My goal has to be something above and beyond the mundane realm. It has to be. Because I myself am beyond and above the mundane realm. Everybody with me? So living a virtuous life then, living a life of virtue is a life wherein I am embracing these different aspects of my person, different aspects of myself. I'm embracing these different aspects of myself, and that self has to be aimed towards the creator of the self. Because in truth, the creator created things, the creator created me for himself. The creator created me for himself. And unless and until I make the creator my purpose, I will find myself upset and angry. And the proof of that, beyond the rational proofs that we can get into, because this is a group of Muslims, one of the proofs behind that is look how Allah created Adam, and Allah taught Adam the names. When Allah taught Adam all the names, at that time He presented Adam before the angels. And He told the angels, let's see, and I'm paraphrasing and using American slang, right? He said to the angels, alright, look, tell me what you know. Tell me what it is that you know. The angels said, we don't know anything except for what you've taught us. So then he presented Adam, and Adam, they knew Adam didn't know anything. And then Allah taught Adam the names. When you know the name of something, you know the nature of something. You know the essence, you know the nature of things when you know the name of things. When He taught Adam the names, after all of that, He had Adam recite to all the angels the names of everything. But why do you think He would do that? Look, Adam is a blank slate. There's nothing there. He teaches Adam all the names. The angels know that God is the one who taught Adam all the names. So when they see Adam reciting all of the names, the angels have a proof, not that they needed it, but just for Allah's grandeur. The angels now have a proof that Allah knows all things. The angels now have a proof that Allah knows all things, because they know that Adam knew nothing before God taught him. And now Adam is telling them the nature of all things. So when Allah created us for Himself, how is that? He created us to be His greatest proof, His greatest sign, the hujjah. Allah created human beings to be the greatest proof, to be the greatest sign, to be the greatest indication of His greatness and His grandeur. You can see in the tree, you can see something of God's names. You can see that the tree, for example, the tree is sustaining, Ar-Razaq. You see that the tree is able to sustain. It's a means of sustenance. But who's the one who caused it to be able to sustain? Ar-Razaq. But you don't know, for example, that Allah is the destroyer. You might not know that Allah is the destroyer by virtue of the tree, unless the tree falls on something. But in the human being is able to gather all those different names. And it's in the human being that you see all the signs of God. We are the greatest sign. We are the greatest indication. Allah made us for Himself so that we can show Himself to the rest of, to all of humanity, to all of creation, as a sign, an indicator. That's why the Messenger of Allah is the best of all of creation, because it's in Him that we have the highest example of that indication. The people will look at the Prophet and they will just remember God. So our as human beings, our virtue, as human beings, our worth, as human beings, our our perfection is realized in realizing our purpose. Just like the pen's perfection is in realizing its purpose, which is to write. My virtue is in realizing my purpose, which is to be a sign of God on this planet. So that's a pious individual. Then is not a pious individual is an individual that when you're around them, you think about your purpose. They remind you of your humanity. They remind you of who you are. That's called piety. All this other stuff, which we go through the motions and our rituals, they're lifeless unless it causes us to remember God. And a pious individual is an individual that when you're around them and when you're with them, they remind you about God, and in doing so, they remind you of your humanity, and they cause you to search for Safa, as this place or this organization is named. They cause you to want to get close to the Creator of the realms. They cause that individual to push away their own baseness and to strive in their soul to go higher, to realize the Creator of the worlds. That's a virtuous life. A virtuous life is a life wherein an individual realizes their full potential as a sign of God. That is a virtuous life. And that's why Allah mentions, for whoever does righteous deeds, whether male or female, while he is a believer, we will surely cause him to live a good life. Hayatun tayyibah. We will give them a good life. We will surely give them their reward in the hereafter according to the best of what they used to do. That's the hereafter bit is a kind of a tafsir. The truth is that Allah will give you a good life in this world and in the hereafter. Whoever does righteous actions, whether male or female, while they believe, we will surely cause him or her to live a good life. That good life is the life of being the sign of Allah on this planet. Because don't you know that just as much as other people, when they see you, they remember Allah? The only reason why that's happening is because, and the happiness they get from being in your presence, and the happiness they get from being around you, and the fulfillment that they get from being around you is something that you yourself are experiencing. You yourself are being fulfilled. You yourself feel happy. You yourself feel whole. When I say happiness, I don't mean a smile on your face. That's not always happiness. Sometimes that is just to get you to buy a car. You've seen these commercials, these advertisements. Or how do you say it here? Is it advertisement? Right. Why is it that whenever you see an advertisement, you see people that like, this car is the best thing that ever happened, and now that I have this car, I am the happiest, I am the most fulfilled, and therefore most virtuous person on the planet. It's because the person is trying to get you to buy the car. Happiness is not always a smile, but happiness is a fulfillment, it's a contentment. It's that, you know, Allah, whatever you've given me, I thank you. And you know, and whatever you want to take away from me, I thank you, because it wasn't good for me. That's the virtuous life. Now, belief causes a person to thank Allah that you have belief, because belief causes a person, it puts a light on inside where they're able to start to navigate and understand the nature of things. And it's through belief that we are able to approach the Quran. And it's through belief that we're able to hear these verses and to ponder them, to think about them. And it's through belief that we are able to extract benefit from them. Because it's through belief that Allah's grace comes to us. And sometimes Allah gives people grace even without having belief. And that grace that Allah gives them without having belief is called belief. So may Allah save us and protect us and protect our iman. Now, what is this thing called desire? What is desire? What does it mean to desire something? What is that all about? To wish for something, to long for something. A lot of times desire is used in the West in romantic sense, but it doesn't really necessarily mean that. Necessarily. What does it mean to desire something? To want something. What does it mean to want something? To need something. Now that's precisely the point. Desire is about need. Human beings are essentially needy creatures. We are constantly needing something. We all want something all the time. No, you don't, brother. I'm totally fulfilled. Are you? Hold your breath. Hold your breath. Let's see how long you can do that for. We're essentially in a state of need. That's the way that God made us. And as a matter of fact, we are the most needy creatures, I would argue, in existence. Isn't that interesting? We claim to be the highest of creatures, but at the same time we're the neediest of creatures. Is that a paradox? No. As a matter of fact, it makes total sense. Because the highest of creatures is the most neediest of creatures is the highest of creatures, because it's through their neediness that they realize how much they need God. It's through the neediness that we realize slavehood. It is through slavehood that a person comes close to Allah. Now, desire is something that all of us have. And there are two types, according to some of the learned ones, there are two types of desires. What are they? You know what your problem is, young man? What? What's my problem? You don't know the difference between a want and a need. Wants and needs are both types of desires. So desire is the umbrella. Wants and need are two types of desires, two types of fulfillments. That might be a better word. You said that desire means need. It does, but desire kind of more means fulfillment. And there are two types of fulfillments. There's one that you want and there's one that you need. Now give me an example, brothers, give me an example of a want.
Car.
Huh?
Car.
A car. Oh, I thought you said pakora. I was thinking, because it's funny is that as soon as I asked myself the question, I thought about pakora. I did, and then you said it, I was like, goodness, he reads minds. Okay, a car. A car is arguably a want. Arguably. I mean, in our day and age, it's arguably, it's a want.
Well, need can be what is your basic need, you need to survive, to live.
Yeah.
And the want is what is above that, which you actually don't need, but you still want it.
Right.
You can do without a car.
Right.
But you still want a car, you want a better car.
Yeah.
So that's more than a need.
Right. The reason why I said it's arguable is because I was thinking about it, like an ambulance. An ambulance is an automobile that is there to help save your life. So that's why I was thinking that, it depends on the context. But in general, what you were saying, that look, you have desires about fulfillment. There's two types of fulfillment. There's needs and wants. Now, a need is something that you have to have in your life to exist, and a want is something that is above and beyond that. Right? Now, a person who's thinking, and a person who's honest with himself, might say the following: I know what I want, but only Allah knows what I need. I know what I want, but only Allah knows what it is that I need. Now, many, many times we have problems, difficulties, hardships, we have anxieties, we beat ourselves up, we beat other people up when it comes to this need to be fulfilled. And we oftentimes confuse wants and needs. A person who can distinguish in their life between wants and needs. Now, when it comes to our relationship with God, sure, there are many things that we want, but God is looking out for us in terms of the things that we need. He gives us what we want. Sometimes, unfortunately, He gives us what we want. But when it comes to that inayah, when it comes to that looking over us, taking care of us, Allah is looking out for our needs. Now, is my existence temporary or permanent? Brothers, she said temporary. What do you say? So which one is it? Is it temporary or permanent? She says our life is permanent. Her proof was because we're going to go into the other realm. Brothers, what do you say? It's true. It's temporary and permanent. Human beings, we are very interesting. It's temporary and permanent. And this life is temporary because life is temporary. But you know that once Allah creates the soul, do you know, according to the vast majority of the scholars, the soul doesn't die. When Allah creates the soul doesn't die. Our body dies, but our soul goes on. Now, what if you're an intelligent person, knowing that you have to choose between what is permanent and what is temporary and what is permanent, what does an intelligent person do? An intelligent individual chooses that which is permanent. Why? Because it's permanent. Abdul Latif, because it's permanent. You answered your own question. Just making sure we're on the same page. Why would you answer? Why would someone choose the temporary over the permanent? Why would they do that? They want immediate gratification. That has to do with what? Their wants. Is it about their needs or about their wants? It's about their wants. We choose the life, we choose the temporary life over the permanent life because we choose our wants over our needs. Because we are ignorant. We're foolish. A foolish person is a foolish individual would choose having $1 million given to them every month for the rest of their life if they wait for 1 month versus an individual who will only have $1 million now if they take it now. A foolish individual would choose the money now. That's tomfoolery. You would not do that. Because you know that if I take the money now, I'm not going to see this money after. But if I just wait 1 month, I'll see it forever after, until I die. The individual who chooses the life of the world, the temporary life, over the permanent life is an individual who does not know the differences between wants and needs. Clearly. Do I need to have happiness and salvation temporarily or happiness and salvation permanently? If you told someone who was a stone cold atheist, just had no belief whatsoever, which I have an argument about that. I don't believe that there is a thing called atheism, but that's another. We'll deal with that some other time. But if you ask this person, who doesn't believe whatsoever in God or any of these kinds of things, whether or not they want to be happy or whether or not they want to be sad, what do you think they're going to say? They're going to be happy. If you prove, in other words, everybody wants good for themselves. The only kind of person that doesn't want good for themselves is someone who's insane. Or they just don't, as a matter of fact, I would even argue that that's not the case. That person wants good for themselves, they just don't know what it is. What Allah has given us when this thing called deen, this thing called religion, this thing called Islam, what Allah has given us is permanent good. It's permanent good. But unfortunately, to be able to have the permanent good, we need to be able to sacrifice some of the temporary wants. The condition of permanent life, the condition of permanent happiness in life and in the hereafter is based upon this thing called slavery. What is slavery? What does slavehood mean? That you have no choice, that you do what the master says. Okay, that's one definition. Imprisonment? Yeah. Do you notice how negative this sounds so far? No, I mean, it's okay. I'm just saying, do you notice? Submission, okay. Huh? Obedience or obeying, right? Okay. Yes. Yeah, master. Oh, let's try not to repeat. If you hear someone saying something, try to think of something else. So, lack of freedom. These are all, if you notice, for Westerners, this is all negative. We don't like any of this stuff. Huh? Right. Slave prophet, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we have a different concept, yeah. Absolutely. But what is, I mean, I don't know if we have a different concept of slavery, because if you listen in the room, we are saying negative things.
Fulfilling the needs of other people.
Slavery is fulfilling the needs of other people? Okay.
Fulfilling the wants of other people.
If that's the case, then I have a few things I need you to do for me. Right? Because you sound like a good worker. Go ahead.
I was saying fulfillment once people are
Okay, so fulfillment. But let's try to think of slavery not so much as a subjectively, not so much about yourself. What does slavery mean to others? No. I couldn't hear you. Servitude. All right. Okay. In Arabic, the word slave, the word abd. What do you think abd means in Arabic? Yeah. Yeah, alright. It translates as slave. Good job. It translates as slave, but it doesn't really mean slave.
Servant.
It doesn't mean worshiper? Servant?
Believer.
You guys are giving really nice Islamic answers.
to put someone above you. Human.
I mean, we use the word every day. What? You guys don't know? Now we're getting somewhere. I have the sisters every time, you know. You guys. Yes. Slavery in Arabic, it means possession. Abd means possession. Or no. Yes, possession, to be possessed. Slavery, no. Abd means possessed, that thing that is owned. But it's meant, like as you said, it doesn't necessarily have a negative connotation when you look at the owner. Right? Abd, ubudiyya is, how do you say this in English? You know, ubudiyya is ownedship, but there must be a better word for that. No, ownedship, property, being property of something. No, being property. Yeah, ownership is mastery. Yeah, belonging, but belonging, but I mean, you know, we're missing it all. It's like, it's on the tip of our tongue, and you really hit it. It's that you belong to something, something owns you, but you're honored by the ownership because of the one who owns you. I mean, there's a certain bit of beauty in that. I mean, there's a lot of beauty in that. Because the one who owns us, doesn't have to make us. The one who owns us doesn't have to feed us. The one who owns us doesn't have to give us breath and life and sustenance and doesn't have to give us this beautiful form that we have. The one who owns us doesn't have to give us faith and children and parents and family. And the one who owns us, you know, he doesn't have to do anything. When you own something, you can do whatever you want to do with it. Right? This pen, if I want to, like, whose pen is this? Okay, can I have it? Cool, I own this now. I'm going to throw it in the trash. I'm going to put it in the bin. You can't say anything to me because you gave it to me. I own it. It's mine. I can do whatever I want. I can put it on top of my head if I want to. But it won't stay. So, right? I can do whatever I want to do with it. I own it. But if I treat it well, and I treat it nicely, and I put it in a nice box, and I don't use it for things it's not supposed to be used for, what am I doing towards the pen? I own it. What am I doing towards it? What am I showing towards it? Grace. I'm showing grace and nobility and respect towards this thing. Like karamna bani Adam. We have honored the son of Adam. So understand that being an abd means that God owns you. It's like a shirt, you know, like if I take the shirt off and I just want to burn it, none of you can say anything to me. Other than you're going to be cold. It's mine. Likewise, Allah can do whatever He wants to do with us. One of the wisdoms I read from Sheikh Ibrahim Niyas, a great scholar from Senegal. He wrote he didn't write, he actually gave a tafsir session that was recorded, that was made into a 6-volume book. And he said that one of the wisdoms about the reason why Allah has not given everyone guidance He said Allah can do whatever He wants to do. However, one of the wisdoms that we can get from that is that Allah doesn't need us. One of the reasons why Allah has not given everybody guidance is because Allah simply doesn't need us. And if He gives someone guidance, He's honoring that individual, not because He needs them. And Allah can honor whomever He wants to honor. That's up to Him. He knows and we don't know. Sometimes Allah can honor people that we don't know why they're getting honored. But Allah does that to show us, Allahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. Allah knows and you do not know. And that makes our minds make sujood. The mind makes sajda. The mind prostrates when you start to think about Allah's majesty. Now, Allah said about this ummah, and thus we made you a just community. I would translate that differently. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. And like this, we have made you, some say a just community, I would say a balanced community. And like this, we have made you a balanced community. Like this, we've made you a balanced community. What does balance mean? What does it mean to be balanced? What does that mean? Equal? Not always. Stable. Why do I say not equal? If you're walking up a mountainside, and you try to stand equally, what will happen to you? You're going to fall. So you're going to have to go. You're going to have to go over to the left. You're going to have to go over to the right. The nature of balance is that balance requires you to have to be what? Flexible. Because the condition and the terrain and the situation changes. So in order to be balanced, you have to be. It implies that one must be flexible. If you are firm and rigid, uncompromising, you will not be able to be balanced because you will not be able to be flexible. Now there are certain areas, tabarakallah, where we as Muslims, we are absolutely rigid. But there are certain areas that we are not required to be so that we can have that flexibility, so that we can be a just community at all times and in all places. May Allah make us just. Now to worship God now we're talking about slavehood. Now, our conversation has now gone into slavehood. We define what slavehood is. It's to be owned. When you're owned, you do what your master says, as you said. But when you're owned, you realize the status of the one who owns you. And as a result, you respect that Lord. Now, our relationship with God is called ubudiyah, the servanthood, the slavehood. And to worship God in extreme fashions is in itself a worship of the nafs. To worship God in an unbalanced manner is in fact a worship of the nafs. Let me explain. Or no, that's my proposition. What do you say? To worship God, that's why the Prophet said, "Halaka al-mutanatti'in." Halaka al-mutanatti'in. The Prophet himself, he said that the people who fall into extremes, they're already destroyed. They're destroyed. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. On one hand, you have the Quran saying that like this we've made you a balanced community, and on the other, in a kind of in an explanation of that, the Prophet he said that those people who go to extremes, they are already destroyed. And what I'm saying is that to worship God in an extreme fashion is to worship one's nafs.
Because you're not thinking about, you're just thinking about yourself and thinking, celebrate because all I'm doing is worship Allah. You're not considering the rest of the world, the people around you, your responsibilities around you.
Right, here's what she's saying. She said that I guess she's supporting me, and she's saying that because when you worship God that way, when you worship God in extremes, you don't give consideration to the context around you. All you care about is yourself in it. It's a very nafsi, egotistical way to worship. Okay. Now that, I'm going to go with that. Now that is an individual. What about when a community is like that? Is it possible for a community to be that way? Is it possible for a community to be so self-absorbed that they worship their collective self, in the sense that they don't consider or care about the context that they find themselves in? Is it possible? Now, if an individual can be ruined that way, can a community be ruined that way? Food for thought. Now, the way a preference, the way of preference, as the Quran indicates and the Hadith indicate, is the way of balance, but I'm here to tell you today that the way of balance is the more difficult way. The way of balance is the more difficult way. Because when you worship from your nafs, you don't have to make considerations or think. You just go. Now that's one, either you completely don't, like you're falling way on this side of religion where you're just completely self-indulgent and don't care about rules or anything like that. Or the other side is that you're so completely involved with rules and obedience in the legal sense of the term that you have no personality. Right? Those are two extremes. What is more difficult, however, is to join between the two. It's the harder route to take. Because in that you have to make sure you're obedient to Allah, make sure you don't disobey Him, and at the same token you have to take consideration of the times and the place and the space that you live in. It's more difficult. Would you not agree that it's much easier for me to close my eyes and pretend like I'm not in England? It's much easier. And the nafs inclines towards what's easier. Now I said all of this to say, how much time do we have until the break?
5-10 minutes.
Okay. Now I've said all of this to provide a mental space for us to go further. From this point, is everyone okay? We're all on the same page? Everybody with me? What we realize when we get to this place is that this thing called, you know what, the brothers are not going to be able to see this. The board's on this side. Okay. Sorry. Okay. But we'll explain it. I mean, some of you can see it, but some of you can't. What we're talking about today is a thing called Deen. You might have heard of it before. You've heard of Deen, I'm sure you have, all of you have. What is Deen?
A way of life.
Okay, a way of life. Next, brothers. What is Deen?
Faith.
Religion, faith, okay. Belief. I'm not saying yes or no, just taking in stuff. What is Deen? What is Deen?
Way of life.
We've said that. We said way of life already.
Purpose.
Purpose? Okay. Deen is my transaction with God. That's why the word dain, Arabic, there's a word dain, which means a debt. Deen is my life transaction with God. How God gave me a body, He gave me everything that I have, so that I will worship Him. And as a result of that, He will give me paradise and happiness. I give Him His rights, He gives me His grace. I don't have a right to paradise. So that is called Deen. Now, is there more than one Deen on the planet? Is there more than one Deen? Certainly there are. There's different ways people have transactions with God. Sure there are. But the one that Allah gave to us, Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Deenakum. On this day I have completed for you your religion. And I am pleased, it continues in the verse. And I have completed my favor upon you, and I have found Islam, and I'm pleased for Islam to be your religion. So Islam and Deen sometimes are interchangeable. Well, I need you to think about the word Deen. Now Deen is comprised of 3 parts. If you need reference, go to the Hadith of Gabriel. Deen is comprised of 3 parts. What are those 3 parts? Yes. You're not supposed to say it so fast. Islam, everyone say Islam. Iman, everyone. Ihsan. Islam, Iman, Ihsan. This shows you from the very beginning that this thing that we have called Deen, which is for the slave, has dimensions. Deen has dimensions. It's not a flat, tasteless, baseless, heightless, if that's a word, Experience, deen is a dimensional, texturized, rich experience that Allah has given the slave. But do you know why Allah has made deen like this for us? One of the wisdoms for us. Why did He make it three-dimensional? How many dimensions does a human being have? How many? 3. What are they? Mind and body and soul. Now, Islam is related to which aspect of us? Huh? Body. Iman is related to which aspect of us? Mind. And that leaves what? The soul. Okay. Brothers, what we have on the board here is deen. Deen is something, the present that Allah gave us. It has 3 different dimensions. Those dimensions, they correlate with the 3 different aspects that we have. Islam is for the body. All of this, if you look in the Hadith of Gabriel, you'll see all of it. Islam is for the body. Iman is for the mind, what we believe. And ihsan is for the soul. Everybody with me? I'm going to ask you guys got to be quiet. You're not guys. It's figures. It's not even, it's just bad English. Okay. I want you now to, even if you have to work together, tell me what Islam is related to. If it's related to the body, which part of our system of life is related to the body?
Islam.
Not exactly. Keep trying. Islam is related to, Islam in the body is Sharia. Sharia. The physical realm. The physical realm. Allah gave the slave an interaction by which he's able to approach him in his physicality or in her physicality. That's called, many call it Islam, or we can call it Sharia, the outward. Everybody with me? Sharia. Now, that's the outward. That's the first level. That's the first dimension. I told you that deen is this thing that Allah gave us is a multi-dimensional reality. The next level is called Iman. Iman is related to the mind, but it also has a different. It also has a different. You know what? When you think of it as being between 2 things, it has a term. Iman, when you think of it being between 2 things, it has a term. Brothers, don't say anything. Sisters, when you think of it being between 2 things, it's a way. It's a going between this place and this place. It has a name. Gateway. No. Payback. Darajat? No, those are levels. It's a term we use all the time. Some people can't stand the term. Some people can't stand the term. Some people are okay with it. Some people have no idea what it is.
Is it the faith? Belief?
No. All right. This term, and I believe it, these are semantics. This is terminology. Understand, we're talking about going between 2 places. If I want to get from here to that door, what must I have to get to that door? A path. Or sorry, a path. So on this path, right? No, we're the ones who can't speak English. We're doing great. This pathway, this path, right? This path, what do you call that in Arabic? Huh? Tariqah. It's called tariqah. It doesn't mean like you have to have like dhikr and there's the shaykh. But understand that it's a pathway. Iman is a path. Iman is a path. It takes you from one place to another place, from your body, from your bodily worship to the worship of your soul. It's a pathway. Very good. Are you from Sudan?
Yeah.
You know, I found, I guess it's a positive stereotype. I found that Sudanese people, are very sharp people. And then she was like, yeah. All right. So, ihsan is the level of the soul. Brothers, back to you. If the body is in place, and I'm walking on this path, in other words, I go inward and I'm inwardly walking on a path, what am I trying to arrive to? We said in the beginning, huh? Yes. Right, we're trying to arrive to God, but I like the way you said it. We're trying to arrive to our purpose. Our purpose is the truth. Our purpose is the truth. What is another way of al-haq, the truth? What is another way of saying the truth in Arabic? How things actually are. Fitrah. Fitrah is related to that. No. Al-haqiqah. Al-haqiqah, the reality, how things actually are. How things actually are. That's the worship of the soul. The worship of the body is in Sharia. Do this, don't do that. Cross your T's, dot your I's. The worship of the mind is the pathway to God. When I say mind, this is something very interesting. There's a blur here, almost. The ancients, the Muslims, and the ancient world, we don't separate between the mind and the soul. That's something that happened now in the West. I'm talking to you as Westerners, but this doesn't apply back then. So you're traveling, and your intelligence is causing you to contemplate. What are you contemplating? You're contemplating the names of God. You're contemplating the qualities of God. And it causes you to travel inwardly until a place where your soul is in a state of worship. That's called haqiqah. Alright? Now pay attention because there'll be a quiz at the end. Just kidding. There's no quiz. But if there is one, just cheat off of her. Okay. So Islam, Iman, Ihsan. These are the three levels that we've been given. And I said that to say to you that the slave has been given three different. The slave, Allah Ta'ala has given the slave a very intricate and dimensional gift. And if you notice, it corresponds with the dimensions that he or she has been given. Our purpose is to realize the oneness of God in our body, to realize the oneness of God in our minds, and to realize the oneness of God in our souls. So the question was in the beginning, what does fasting have to do with Tawhid? What does fasting have to do with Tawhid? Well, stick around for the next portion and we'll talk about that. To be continued.